I'll be your MC for the evening. My name is William Repetto. I'm a graduate student here at Villanova, earning my master's degree in English, but I'm also a graduate assistant on the communication and marketing team here at Falvey Memorial Library. Our first speaker tonight is going to be Millicent Gaskell. Millicent and the entire Falvey Memorial Library staff are committed to advancing causes of accessibility, diversity, and inclusion here at the library. Millicent has been at the library since 2015 and came to us with broad experience in both higher education and the private sector, including leadership roles at QVC and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. While at MIT, she served as department head of collection strategy and management with oversight of collection development, analysis, acquisition, and metadata for their $10 million collections budget, and was twice honored for outstanding communication, innovation, and collaboration. Since at Villanova, she has initiated and driven many distinguished projects, both in the forefront and behind the scenes, most notably the renovation and construction of the new Dugan Polk Family Reading Room and the expansion of 24/7 study areas in the main building. I'd like to introduce Millicent Gaskell, Villanova's University Librarian and Director of Falvey Memorial Library.
Thanks, William. Diversity and inclusion are things that are very central to libraries in general, but also Falvey Memorial Library in specific. We serve the entire community. We try to build collections that are diverse on topic, but also from multiple viewpoints. We try to make our collections accessible equitably to all communities, and we also try to be a place where everyone in the community feels welcome. Today, we are very excited to unveil the Diversity and Inclusion Resource Guide. This guide, which can be found on the library's website, is dedicated to making diversity and inclusion resources more accessible to the Villanova community. The creation of the guide was inspired by Villanova's Innovation, Creativity, and Entrepreneurship Institute's 2017 Creativity Challenge, which Falvey's Communication and Marketing Department participated in last spring. It is our hope that the guide will serve as a place to explore a vast range of social, political, sexual, racial, ethnic, and gendered issues in today's world. You will have the opportunity to hear about the creation of the resource guide. You'll hear from Dr. Terry Nance, our Associate Vice Provost for Diversity and Inclusion and our Chief Diversity Officer, as well as various student groups that will share information about their organization and activities. I'd like to thank ICE, ODI, and Falvey's staff for supporting this project, and especially to Sarah Wingo, our librarian for English Literature and Theater, and William Repetto, our graduate assistant, who created the resource guide. So I'd like to please join me in welcoming Sarah and William to talk about it.
So I'd like to start by thanking somebody else for the creation of this page, actually. Joanne Quinn, our team leader, was probably most responsible for this thing coming about. She came to one of our team meetings in the spring of last year and posed the question that the ICE had asked to the Creativity Challenge. Their question was, how would you create an inclusive community that represents all perspectives of a 21st century society? This question kind of inspired me in certain ways because as an English major, we often get the chance to talk about how voices appear in a text, or we talk about what the author's argument is about voices in a text. But it's not often that we actually get to make practical change, the changes that we get to talk about over literature. So with that in mind, and with Joanne's urging, I kind of took, I guess, what you'd call the project lead for this. Our initial brainstorming sessions, we came up with the idea to create a bookmark. We thought maybe if we could distribute resources that talk about diversity and inclusion, that this could let the community know how we're involved. But what we came to with that was that that's perhaps too static. A bookmark does highlight what's going on in a community concerning diversity and inclusion, but it doesn't really create a community. So the next idea we came up with was the guide you're looking at now. Initially, I wrote a bunch of copy for a page like this that included tackling topics like fake news and misinformation in order for us to get a more appropriate view of underrepresented communities. Sarah here emailed me about that. I have it written down. And she said, this guide isn't about teaching, this guide isn't teaching students about how to assess resources to determine when something is true. It's providing and promoting resources on marginalized communities. So from the bookmark to this idea of fake news, we went from something that was too static to something that was just simply too big. And in this moment, I got to experience a great amount of professional growth, I like to say. You know, obviously when you come up with an idea, you think all of your ideas are great. So when your team's shooting them down or changing them in various ways, sometimes you can feel a little bit discouraged. But we kept at it. And with this scope in mind, what Sarah emailed me there, we started to redo a lot of our resources, a lot of our copy, and most importantly, we coordinated as a team. Our events team, Hunter, Gina, and Callie, they're all kind of dispersed here, told me about how you'd put together an event for this kind of thing. Like, let's say you did promote a guide and make it, how do you get it out to your public? And a lot of what we talked about is happening right here, which is kind of interesting to see. Joanne, our team leader, who moved over there now, she did all of our graphic work and all of the mock-ups for things. And our liaison, Sarah, had all of these resources available right away, which kind of surprised me that they were curated so fast. So I'd like to turn it over to her to talk about where these resources came from.
So the reason that I had these resources right away to email to Will when we started talking about doing this program and proposing this to ICE was because during the summer of 2016, I was in the middle of attending bi-weekly brown bag lunches with IGR. And it also so happened that during that summer was when the shootings of two men, Sterling and Castile, were shot and killed. And it wasn't the first time I had heard about police shooting. It wasn't the first time I had heard about African American men being killed or brutalized in this way. But because of my involvement with IGR at the time, because of the proximity, just how quickly in succession those two things happened, I found myself feeling really lost and upset and distraught because, you know, you can share articles on social media, you can talk to people, you can go to protests, but what could I actually do from my position as a librarian in my chosen career and with a very specific skill set that I had? And one of the things that I thought of in that time to do was to create a list of resources available here at Falvey, highlighting African American experience and other resources in that area. It felt small, but it felt like something. So I did that. I pulled together those resources and I sent them to Joanne and shared them with her so that we could put them up in a blog post or something like that. I also kind of, over the rest of the summer after that, I started doing the same thing for other resources, for other underrepresented communities, because I think, you know, you can go to databases A to Z on the library's website, and there's this huge list of resources, but sometimes if you want to go in and find things for a specific community, it can be hard to know where to start. So I had that list sort of sitting with me, and I hadn't been sure what to do with it quite yet, and so this kind of seemed like the perfect opportunity, and I forwarded it along to Will.
And so with that, we were almost ready for pitch day, but we still had an uncomfortable feeling about if we were really creating a community. Again, we were highlighting things online, and it's more of a living document that you can change, but we weren't 100% sure how this created a community. So we came up with the idea of a hashtag that would be aggregated on the page where people can talk about what's going on in their lives and what articles they're reading that pertain to diversity and inclusion. So we came up with the hashtag Falvey Includes, which you can see on the graphic over here. When you share Falvey Includes on Twitter, whatever you share will be aggregated onto the page within 2 or 3 minutes or so. So with that, we went into pitch day. We were fortunate enough to earn a good amount of funding in order to keep going with our project. But the timeline didn't line up exactly. I'm a graduate assistant, like I said, so I was not going to be working during the summer because that's our vacation. And Sarah was also put on a number of search committees in order to find, what was that?
So many search committees.
Yeah, to find replacements for people who were retiring here at the library. That time delay actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise because we had pitched this idea of a Twitter feed to the team at ICE, but we weren't 100% sure how this could be implemented or if it was something we were 100% sure we could really control. But during that semester where we didn't get much work done, I was actually teaching a class along with Travis Foster. I got to be a TA. And our class was Race and Racism in American Literary History. It was a giant class. I think there were about 25 people or so involved, which is a lot for literature. But we did a lot of breaking up into small groups. And while we were in these small groups, I realized that when everybody has a podium to talk about underrepresented voices, there seems to be a lot more productivity, a lot more to say. And so when that semester was over and I got to reflect over Christmas coming into this semester, I decided we needed to go sort of full force at this, and we definitely needed to include the social stuff. So this involved another round of coordination. I brought the tech dev team in on it in order to do the social media stuff. We had our events team putting together an actual event this time instead of a theoretical kind of thing. I had Sarah for constant feedback. I was sending her like 5 emails a day sometimes, making sure that we could really get this thing perfect. And lastly, and sort of within the last 2 weeks or so, we redid some of the graphics because we decided they weren't exactly in line with what we really wanted to do with the guide. And we ended up coming up with what you see here. This was made by Joanne by the inspiration of a Libraries Are For Everyone project. They uploaded all these sort of images you see here and said, please use these in any way that you're promoting diversity and inclusion in libraries. I really like it because it shows not only diverse people, but also the diverse ways that people interact with a library. There's laptops, tablets, books. So it's very modern, very hip feeling. But what I like the most about it is where we put Falvey Includes sort of right at the heart of this image. It's really the message that drives this page, and it's really something that I hope you'll use on your own social media. With that, I'll turn it over to Sarah to sort of click through the guide and show you all its facets.
Thanks. So I want to just briefly give you a little tour of the guide. I won't spend too much time on it because I know that those of you in the back probably can't read very well what's on there, but I just want to give you a little bit of a feel for it. I also just want to start by saying this is brand new. We're launching it today. What we hope is that with this guide, we've created a space where people can come and help us create a community. We're going to make mistakes, we'll mess up along the way, and we hope that you as our community will be honest and open with us when we do make mistakes, and we promise that we'll listen. So, you know, if there's something you see on the page that doesn't look right, if there's something you want added, please reach out to us, and I'll show you a few different ways to reach out to us directly from the site. Because one of the things that we recognized and one of the things that's really important about this site is that we can share the resources that we have at the library, but you who know your communities best, who know the resources that are useful to your communities best, are going to be our greatest resource for building this site, for keeping this site going, and for inspiring new directions that we might go with this project. So this is the landing page for the site, but I'm just going to take you briefly to the library's homepage and show you how to get to it. So you can definitely just search for it in the library's search bar, but if you want to go directly to it, it's under Guides, and then Topic Guides, and it's the Diversity and Inclusion Topic Guide. So that's how you get to it from the library's homepage. So on the landing page for the Diversity and Inclusion Guide, you'll see on the left-hand side, we have a resource submission form. We're actively asking our community to submit resources for any of the topics that are covered on this guide or topics that should be covered that aren't yet. And I'll show you that resource guide here. So if we click through to it, I'm going to open it in a new tab so we can come back to this. Yes. Unless we're having a glitch, which is entirely possible because we had to do something with the, cool. It was working 20 minutes ago, I promise. The link to the guide isn't working. All right, so if you go over to the submission form, I think we had to rejig something with the URL just a little while ago, and I think that might have messed it up. I apologize for that. I was just going through this before I came down here and it was working fine. But if you click through to the resource submission form, which I'll try and fix actually before we even get done here today so we can show you, You'll see a form, it's very brief. It asks you a few questions about yourself that are optional. You don't have to put them in. We do ask that you give an email address, but that will be kept strictly confidential. That's just if we have a question, if the resource link or something you send us doesn't work. But the main important thing on that submission guide is the link to the resource, and then just a short description of that resource, and that can be pulled directly from that resource's website. Or it can be something that you put in your own words. And when I say the word resource, that's kind of broad. What do I mean? I'll tell you what we initially conceived of, but I'm also going to say that our initial conception of this site and the ways in which it can be used, we expect that to evolve based on how you, our community, uses it. So it's not sort of a strict prescription of how you have to use it. I submitted, just to sort of test out the metric, I submitted a link here on the LGBTQ plus resource page for the Attic in Philadelphia, which is a center in Philadelphia that helps queer youth of color. And so you see under the LGBT community curated content, that link shows up there, and then you can go out to it. On each of our pages, we also have a link to content in databases A to Z. Those are specifically databases that the library has purchased and pays for and supports. And then we also have a curated list of books and ebooks. Obviously, we're not going to have every single book and ebook on a topic on this page. That would be an impossible task. But we're trying to highlight some on this topic so that if you were coming here for the first time and sort of curious about some things, you could go there and sort of see what some of the resources that we have are. Back to the main page. On the main page, you've got that Twitter feed that Will was talking about. If you hashtag Falvey includes on any tweets, it'll show up in this feed. The feed is also a way to share resources. I think the feed is also a place where conversation can happen around resources that already exist on the page, maybe articles that seem relevant, or just conversations that you're having around campus that you think might be of interest to the community that's gathering here. And then I also just wanted to draw attention to just below the resource submission form, there's also just a little blurb that says, are you a member of a community that is not yet represented here? Contact us. Because right now we have a small list. We're just getting started. We wanted to have some things on our list to get started, but we recognize that there are a vast number of communities on this campus that we are aware of and both that we're unaware of. So we want to add more. We want to include everyone. And we want to sort of build this resource up. And again, that's where you come in as our community. So is there anything else you want to cover? All right. I think that covers everything that I was going to cover here, so I'm going to give it back to Will to introduce Terry.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So like Sarah said, we're going to move on to our next speaker. Dr. Terry Nance is the Associate Vice Provost for Diversity and Inclusion and Chief Diversity Officer. In that role, she is responsible for the work of diversity and inclusion throughout Villanova University with a focus on faculty, policy, and institutional climate. Dr. Nance has been on the faculty of Villanova University since 1978. Professor Nance was instrumental in designing and initiating the communication department, where she occasionally teaches communication courses that might include African American rhetoric, public speaking, interpersonal communication, and voice and diction. Terry Nance received a bachelor's and master's degree at Emerson College in Boston and a PhD from Temple University in Philadelphia. At Emerson, Dr. Nance was a secondary education major with a specialty in English, history, and sociolinguistics. At Temple University, Dr. Nance completed work in both speech and urban education. In fact, her dissertation focused on ways to improve the educational progress of academically underprepared urban students. Outside the classroom, Dr. Nance has continued to pursue her interest in education. Over the past 20 years, she has been very involved in a number of public engagement activities with such organizations as Public Agenda, National Education Association, and the Campaign for Fiscal Equity. Dr. Nance has done workshops and presentations about culture, race, and education, and at schools, colleges, professional organizations around the country. She has done workshops on interpersonal communication, listening skills, conversation skills, impression management, developing professional voice and diction, conflict resolution, and cultural diversity. Professor Nance's expertise in the classroom has been recognized by awards from the university and her professional associations, the National Communication Association and the Eastern Communication Association. As you can tell, we're very honored to have Dr. Nance at our event today. On a personal level, her validation means all the world and gives me an optimistic feeling about the future of our project. I take great pleasure in introducing Dr. Terry Nance.
Do I need this? Yes. Yes, no, maybe so. Yeah, for the video people, excuse me. As I get started, one of the things I have to say is a big thank you to the library. I'm going to talk about how this guide plays into what I see as the diversity, equity, and inclusion mission. But I just wanted to start on a personal note. When I was a little girl growing up in Cleveland, one of the places I used to go was the Mount Pleasant Community Library on 140th and Kinsman. And you need to understand that the library wasn't just a place where I got a book. For a little girl growing up in inner city Cleveland, the library was my insight into another world. It was my way of knowing the possibilities that were hanging out for me. A little black girl in the 50s wasn't exactly being encouraged to think about getting a PhD. And so one of the things you need to understand is that for us, a library was never just about the books. It was the library where we had the voter registration drives. It was at the library that the organization for the picketing that was going to take place at our neighborhood Woolworths, and you might want to look up on this new guide why we were picketing Woolworths, took place. And even more important, it was at the library that we learned how to fill out our college applications and those very complicated financial aid forms. So in some ways, as I come here to thank the library for your incredible work in launching us into diversity, equity, and inclusion in the library, I'm really saying thank you for confirming my view that the librarians are really the social justice warriors that I always knew you to be. So thank you in advance for what you've done. Can I put my...
Yeah. You can close it. Go ahead. It's okay.
So here we go. I'm on a script. Those of you who know me usually know I don't talk with a script, and I'm limiting myself. Someone said, talk about the importance of diversity and inclusion. I said, I better write this down or this could be a very long time. So how many times have you heard the statement, Villanova should do more about diversity? If Villanova really cared about diversity, it would do something. As you listen to those statements, you think that this diversity is a thing, and somehow we should go to the diversity store and purchase it. If only it were that easy. Diversity and equity and inclusion is not simply anything. Today, I need you to understand that diversity, equity, and inclusion is an educational state of being that is an essential element in higher education today. With a diversity, equity, and inclusion orientation, an institution will be able to produce global citizens ready to take on the real issues of the day. Without such an orientation, without that diversity, equity, and inclusion orientation, an institution is fated to educational irrelevancy and probably dissolution. This is serious business, this diversity stuff. Today we are here to celebrate this great step forward in the diversity, equity, and inclusion process that we are building here at Villanova University. This diversity guide, built by the staff of our incredible library, opens avenues of knowledge and interest and understanding to the Villanova community. As I reviewed the guide last night, spent a bit of time on it, I could but click on resources I never knew existed and was introduced to scholarship beyond my limited worlds of exploration. More than simply helping us do our work for a paper, project, or even a conference presentation, this guide allows us to not only know what we do not know, but to understand that there are ideas, scholars, and ways of thinking that, now hang on to this, we didn't know we didn't know. That, my friends, is part of diversity, equity, and inclusion orientation that I want to talk briefly about today. The best way for me to begin this explanation is both to look backward in order to see forward and understand the difference between what I call old diversity and new diversity. Old diversity models focused on increasing ethnic and racial diversity in the student body. This thinking goes back to the days of the 60s and 70s, quite frankly, when I was in undergraduate school, that there was a strong desire to redress the social inequities of the past. The civil rights marches had turned into the demands of Black power and culturally relevant curricula. This focus on students responded also to the demands of business and community leaders to strengthen workforce diversity for moral and legal reasons. In general, there was a feeling that diversifying the student body was the right thing to do. I call this approach the civil rights approach. This was a necessary step in this history of DEI. I'll stop saying diversity, equity, and inclusion because I think by now you've got it, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in higher education. But while it was necessary, it was hardly sufficient. Let's think about what was not addressed. We were so focused on the students. What do you think we were missing? We weren't thinking about just about everybody else. We weren't thinking about the faculty. We were not thinking about the staff. We were not thinking about the administrators. We were not thinking about the people who shaped the structure of the university. And instead, somehow there was this notion that we would put the responsibility for diversifying the institution on the very people who had the least power in the university. How did that make a lick of sense? Not only weren't we focused on that part, but we also were not looking at campus climate once the students and others arrived on campus. I will share with you what my mother told me when I said, "Mom, they're not nice to me." She said, "I didn't send you there to have people be nice to you. I sent you there to get an education. Get your education, and then you can do something about it." I see a little few nods in the audience because that's what we heard. But we know that that's not a way in which you build a diverse institution. And one of the things that we know from my work with the Alumni Association, we have some very successful students or adults who graduated from Villanova. And they are not happy with the institution because they had a very difficult time. We have to be concerned about the experience of everyone in the institution if we're really going to be that kind of DEI environment that's so important. So, and the other thing is that students' multiple identities were not being addressed. Quite frankly, diversity was Black people, you know? And that's not really helpful even to the people that you will call Black. So we were not looking at race and ethnicity or the intersections of gender, class, sexual orientation, national and regional origin, ability, or even religion. And yet all of these are part of the rich fabric of people who need to be in the university if I am going to get the kind of education, even as a faculty member, that I need to get, right? Nor will you get if you're really looking at it. So most important, and even more important than all of that, was that what was not addressed was what I'm going to call curriculum transformation. That is, we did not have scholars producing work that included the perspectives of non-majority groups, and nor were other modes of inquiry validated in the academy. Now, see how we've come a long way to letting Black kids in the door, right? Then to talking about shaping the product of education. So As the 60s and 70s melt into the new millennium, there's a stark realization that increased numbers of underrepresented students on campus did not automatically make a campus feel welcoming and inclusive. Students were challenging the courses they were required to take and were demanding more input into the curriculum. Students expressed dissatisfaction with the isolated Black Studies or Latinx course available to them. Women wanted more than just courses, but the acknowledgement of women's input into established areas of study. Can we get it? So, what emerged is a new, what I would call new diversity. And new diversity, for those of you who work in this area, is called inclusive excellence. And this approach offers a method for organizing our work that is deliberate, integrated, intentional, and coordinated. In this approach employs a dual focus in diversity efforts, concentrating on both increasing the compositional diversity. We're not letting that go. We still need to increase those numbers, but also in creating learning environments in which students and employees of all backgrounds thrive. It requires a more comprehensive and widespread level of engagement and commitment, ensuring that every student fulfills their educational, professional potential. Now, this is important. The inclusive excellence focus places the mission of DEI at the center of institutional life. That's so important. I'm going to say it again. That what inclusive excellence does is it moves diversity, equity, and inclusion from the margins to the center of the page. And it says that the impact of race, ethnicity, and the influence of physical ability, sexual orientation, gender expression, socioeconomic background, first-generation status are all vitally important to the learning experiences in the institution. It also saw that the demands, that the ideals of diversity and excellence can be pursued as the interconnected and interdependent goals that they are. So, what you should take from all of this is, yes, Villanova is aware and working on compositional diversity. But more important, as a community, we must find ways to commit ourselves to inclusive excellence. For a moment, I want to talk to the students. Now, I know in some ways that your demand, and we have heard it from the surveys that we've given you, your demand for more faculty, for more students, is important. And you know that we're engaged in a strategic planning process, and we're going to do that. In the meantime, there's stuff that you can be doing. Let me give you an example. Let's talk about how diversity, equity, and inclusion can occur in the classroom. If you're, first of all, taking one of those interesting courses that are not absolutely required. For example, if you took a course on the Civil War. So many of my students, I teach a course in African American rhetoric, and they say, well, that sort of happened at the end of junior year, but we didn't get to all of it. So take a course, find out the whole story, find out. I'll leave a mystery for you. Reconstruction didn't end well. And that there are some Black scholars who say that we are actually in a period of the second Reconstruction. I hope that's a mystery that you can use the guide to find out more about. But anyway, for example, a diverse education would teach you about what really happened in the Civil War. An inclusive education about the Civil War would tell you the personal stories of the brave people on both sides of the controversy. An equitable education is one that would show you how the many structures that are keeping people consigned to poverty today were created as a result of what happened in the United States at that time. Right? So that partially it's up to you to take advantage of the courses that are being offered, but also to ask those important questions of diversity, equity, and inclusion. How many of you have gone on service projects? Service trips? How many of you have done volunteering? Not getting a lot of life. Come on, let's mock it. Well, I would ask you to be conscious of your service. Again, a diverse service experience would put you in contact with people who don't look like you. That's okay. That's good. That's good. But it's not enough. An inclusive service experience would have you understand how the person you were serving is like you, and how that person you are serving has so much to give you, and that if you walk away from that experience not learning it, you have missed an incredible opportunity. And an equitable service opportunity has you look at and say, why am I here in the first place? What societal structures have broken down that make my service necessary? And what can I do to make the kinds of changes that will result in lasting change? So, I have gone far beyond the 10 minutes that I promised that I was going to speak. So much for writing it out. But make no mistake, the work we are talking about here is critically important. I want to close with the words of an amicus brief that was filed on behalf of the University of Michigan when it was involved in a little case involving affirmative action. And the amicus brief was written by the American Council on Education and signed by over 57 other organizations. And this is what it said, and these will be my final words today. Those responsible for higher education have a critical burden. Students, I'm including you here too. They must produce the cohort that will guide the nation in the vocations, educate those who govern it, and meet this society's pressing needs. On their success, the liberty, prosperity, and world leadership of the United States depend. Government's interest in fostering and not impeding higher education is manifestly compelling. In other words, diversity and inclusion is important, not just for you, not just for Villanova, but for the country and the world in which we want to live. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak, and thank you for this incredible work.
Thank you so much for that. That was very inspiring. During the course when you were giving that, as a matter of fact, our technological development team found out that the request form was broken, so they fixed it. I need my event staff to turn this back on if you could. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Is this logged in?
Yeah, you should be good. Yeah, it should be up. You're saying you already? Okay.
All right, and I will invite Sarah back up to show you the request form.
I'm just going to do this quickly because I don't want to take any more time than I need to away from student groups. But I did just want to. Why is it not?
Just give it a second.
Oh, okay.
Apparently.
Try hard refresh.
Yeah. There we go. All right, apologies for the glitch earlier. So I just wanted to give you a quick preview of the resource submission form. It's just a really easy form. You fill it out, you scroll to the bottom, you hit submit. The email will go directly into the email box that we have for this group now. It's an email that I have attached to my email, so I'll be checking it, but you can also contact me individually. And there's a few places on this site that has my email address, and then that contact us on the left-hand side also has an email address if you're filling out the form and have any questions. Again, this is brand new, so if there's anything that doesn't make sense to you on the form, any questions you have when you're filling it out, either about the form itself or the site, feel free to shoot us an email. Like, we're trying to learn, we want to grow this page with you, so we're relying on you guys to help us make it clear and communicative. So we've tested it a lot, but we know there's still work to be done. Anyways, I'm going to turn it back over.
Landing page.
Landing page. We're going to go back to the landing page,
Excellent. That'll just be really
and I'm going to turn it over to Will, who's going to introduce the student groups that are here to talk to us today.
Thanks. All right, so I'm going to call the student groups up one by one. Before I do that, I'm going to read you a quick open letter from the Communication and Marketing Department here at the library. Again, that's Joanne Quinn, Regina Duffy, Callie Stahl, who were just doing the projector work, Hunter Hautzer, who's sitting right here, some of our student workers who are also here, and myself, as well as Sarah. So this is what they wrote. As a community composed of diverse perspectives and viewpoints, we believe that the library is a welcoming place where students can engage with each other and share their unique voices, ideas, and stories. It is in this spirit that Falvey would like to co-sponsor information sessions led and facilitated by multicultural and service student groups who are interested in promoting their groups, creating awareness about the group's mission, and recruiting new members. By supporting multicultural and service student groups and giving them a platform to spread their message, we believe we can help to create an inclusive environment that nurtures an understanding and appreciation for diversity among the VU community. As a co-sponsor of your student group information session, Falvey will provide an event space with equipment set up in room 205, snacks, and help with publicity, including posters, announcements, evites, buttons, etc., among that blog posts and social media mentions. Please sign the sheet at our information table tonight, which is over there, or email us at libraryevents@villanova.edu if your group is interested in holding information sessions here over the next academic year. So with that, I'd like to invite up our first student group, which is Rays of Sunshine.
Hey guys, my name's Otto Ebley. I'll just keep this really brief. So I'm here to represent Rays of Sunshine today, and what we're really a service kind of opportunity for students where we're able to kind of give outreach into the community. And what we do is we actually have tutoring trips, so we go into inner city Philadelphia schools, kind of K through 12, as well as different service learning centers to really help the kids who are a little bit more underprivileged. And when we're there, we're able to help them with math, English, and kind of all the subjects that they might need help with, especially when it comes to standardized testing. But even more than that, what we're there to do is we're there to kind of give a mentorship experience so they have someone to talk to if they need someone to talk to, as well as actually in the end of the year and coming up in April here, we're actually inviting all the kids that we help tutor onto Villanova's campus, and we're having a Rays of Sunshine Day where they're able to see what college is like, because for a lot of these kids, they don't actually think about college as part of their future. So with us being there to help them, not only we're there to help them, but we can kind of guide them towards a better path too that they might not have considered before. If anyone's interested in joining, we're in the student involvement office. You can talk to me or any of our people on the exec board, and Steve Koch as well. Thank you very much.
Next up is Special Olympics.
Hi everyone, my name is Trisha and I'm from Special Olympics Committee.
Hi, I'm Dan Kolb and I'm the athlete rep from Special Olympics Committee.
So Dan's one of our athlete reps. He comes to every single committee meeting with us. So although we are representing committee, there are 1,000 other ways to get involved with Special Olympics. Special Olympics kind of preaches the mission of inclusion for those with differing abilities and as well as intellectual disabilities. We have athlete practices about 3 times a week that you can attend. The link to sign up to go to them is in the newswire each week. And then we have a bunch of unified events where athletes from the surrounding areas will come to Villanova's campus, and Villanova students will play alongside the athletes in games as like soccer. We have volleyball coming up in April. If anyone's interested in that, there's going to be a link again in the newswire to sign up. And then, of course, volunteering the weekend of Special Olympics and interacting with the Special Olympics community then is a great way to get involved. Does that add anything?
And if you want to get involved at the state level, you can go onto their website, www.specialolympicspa.org, and see how to get involved. I actually have volunteered at Villanova. I serve I'm the athlete rep. This is my 5th year on committee, and hopefully be back next year. If not, it's been a good run. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up is the Student Labor Action Movement.
Hello, my name is Rachel Wolf, and I'm the current president of Villanova Student Labor Action Movement, which is a local chapter of United Students Against Sweatshops, a national organization. So our local chapter and chapters across the country are running international solidarity campaigns, fighting in solidarity with workers in Hanse, Vietnam, against the abuses in their factories. Usually these are subcontracted factories. So we're trying to put pressure on our universities and on Nike to remediate the abuses that are occurring and to make it legally binding that abuses such as these never occur in their factories again. We have our poster board from the activities fair over there and a sign-up sheet if anyone's interested in being involved with our group. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we'll have She's the First.
Hi everyone, my name is Marissa and I'm the president of She's the First. We are a chapter of a national nonprofit organization with over 250 chapters nationwide. She's the First fights gender inequality through education. We support girls who will be the first in their family to graduate from high school and train students everywhere to be global citizens. There are 130 million girls around the world who are not in school, so we try to combat this issue through peer education, such as documentary screenings, book clubs, and we write letters to the scholars around the world. Right now, our fundraising events provide scholarship as well as healthcare, room and board, and mentorship programs to two scholars we sponsor in Sierra Leone. So if you'd like to learn more, we have some flyers in the back and a sign-up sheet. Thank you.
Next we have Villanova International Students Organization.
Hi guys, my name is Jade and I'm here to represent Villanova International Student Organization. Our organization is created at first to help out the office to, help the international student coming in. Like when a freshman international student come in, we'll have an international orientation with the regular orientation follow after that, and then throughout the year we'll have different events. And that way we can create a community within the international students. Listening to the speech afterwards, and then we think about how we can't just be a community if we're still marginalized in Villanova's campus. So next year we'll try to do a lot more stuff that can connect international students with the Villanova community. First off is the international orientation. This year is our first year to open to the entire school for international orientation leaders. So everyone can apply to be a leader to help out during the orientation. And next year we're having our largest class for international students coming in. We're really excited to have the new student coming in, and we think that we'll try our best to provide as many resources to them as possible, including this new program we're thinking to come up. It's called Breaking Boundaries. Basically, we'll pair up one local student and one international student, and then through this way, each other can learn from the other side. The international student can have academic support from the local students, and local students can learn about more about the world through the international students. And then imagine after you graduate, you'll go to Spain. You have someone that you can live, some houses that you can live in. I don't know, it seems super cool. But we're still in the planning process, and we'll definitely have more information for you guys next year after we push out the programs. Yeah, and then for the international orientation, I didn't bring any sign-up sheet today, but feel free to reach out to me, and I'm your personal sign-up sheet, and I'll give you a link if that's possible. Yeah, thank you guys.
Next up is the Association for Women in Mathematics.
Hi everyone, my name is Megan D'Onofrio. I'm here on behalf of the Association for Women in Mathematics. AWM is a global organization whose goal is to encourage women to study math and advance their careers in fields of mathematical sciences. We also are promoting the equal treatment and equal opportunities for women in mathematics. You don't have to be a woman or even a math major to join. It is the Association for Women in Mathematics, not of the Women in Mathematics. So really anybody that is supporting of women in math is able to join. Some events we host include field trips to possible companies we'd like to work at. For example, last year we took a trip to the Google offices in New York City, which is super cool and super fun to see. We also went to Washington, D.C. and spoke to Congress about some laws to pass within the STEM fields and equal opportunities for women in STEM. And some things we've done in the past were guest speakers we've had come to campus and talk about their careers. And we've also had just some fun movie nights where we hang out and talk about math and stuff. Last week we actually watched Hidden Figures together, so great movie. Yeah, so if you'd like to sign up, I also don't have a sign-up sheet, but you can sign up with me. Yeah, so yeah.
I have MLK Day of Service next, but none of the representatives checked in with me. Is anyone here from that group? Okay, it sounds kind of self-explanatory, but I would add that even with these events that we're doing here, everything takes a lot of logistics, a lot of coordination these days. So MLK Day of Service is an organization that's out there. If you're interested, I'm sure you can find them on any of the Villanova websites. Next up is service break experiences.
Hi everyone, my name is Gracie Sagliano and I'm part of Villanova's Service and Justice Experience program. I actually just came back from a break trip that I led last weekend in Exmoor, Virginia, which was filled with sleeping on the floor of a church, eating peanut butter and banana sandwiches every day, and smashing my finger with a nail gun. But I also had the time of my life while doing this. A service break trip might not be the most glamorous experience, but it gives Villanova students the rare opportunity to get outside of the Villanova bubble, to get outside of their comfort zones, and to learn about communities and individuals they otherwise might not interact with. Students are encouraged to deeply examine questions of injustice and inequality in communities around the country and even around the world. In exploring these questions, we're able to also examine ourselves and the role we play in our nation's inequality. On a service and justice experience, we come face to face with individuals experiencing poverty and discrimination. We go on these trips to learn from the problems we encounter, but also the beauty we see. We learn from the struggles of the people we meet, but most importantly, from their love and kindness. I would really encourage anyone, if you're thinking about it, to go on a spring break trip or a fall trip, or if you've already gone on one, you can apply to lead one, and you can do that on the campus ministry website. And if you have any questions, you can ask. Thank you.
Thanks. Next up is Feminova.
Hello everyone, I'm Gianna Perez. I'm the co-founder and co-president of Feminova. Jubilee Marshall, the other co-founder and co-president, is sitting in class right now, so I am representing our group. So Feminova, or Villanova Feminism Society, our full name, was founded in the spring of 2016. Much like the creators of this resource guide, Jubilee and I got to campus and saw that there was a lack of space for this kind of group, and so we created it ourselves. And so now we boast an over 500 member email list composed of faculty, staff, undergraduate students, and graduate students alike. We host bi-weekly discussions on topics that our members vote about. So we talked about everything from locker room talk in the most recent election to masculinity. We have never had an all-female meeting. Men do come to our meetings. That's everybody's first thing is, are boys allowed? Yes, of course you are. And we have been committed from day one to providing a space for intersectional and trans-inclusive feminist dialogue on campus as well as activism. And we are both very excited for what this diversity and inclusion resource guide means for current and future generations of feminists, activists, and students overall on Villanova's campus. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Samosa.
Hi, I'm Manav Patel. I'm the treasurer of Samosa.
Hi, I'm Rohan Parikh, and the co-PR chair.
So basically, we're basically the South Asian Multicultural Organization of Student Alliance. Our club promotes South Asian and Indian culture on campus, and we host a lot of events throughout the year in which people can come out and have fun and celebrate Indian culture with us. And for example, this upcoming fall, we have a cultural show, which is ACS approved for any freshmen wanting to get the credits. And we basically have a lot of dance groups come out and from all over the Philadelphia area, including our own. And yeah, so it's definitely something to check out.
And towards the end of April, we also have an event called Holi, which is an Indian cultural event of colors. It's a great opportunity for people to come out with their friends, meet new people, eat great food. And something we love about Samosa is that it gives people the ability to embrace a new culture that they've never seen before. And it's a great opportunity to meet new people.
So if you guys are interested at all, you can check Facebook for our group or talk to us on our way out. So thank you very much.
And lastly, Villanova Hillel.
Hi everyone, my name is Miranda Sensheimer and I'm here representing Villanova Hillel as the Interfaith Coordinator on campus. The mission of Villanova Hillel is to enhance the religious and cultural lives of Jewish students on campus, as well as provide a learning tool for non-Jewish students on campus, which do provide the majority of Villanova students. We hope to uphold our mission by celebrating Jewish holidays and providing various events such as weekly Shabbats and other events on campus. We hope to make Jewish students feel as comfortable as possible on campus and address as many needs, as well as providing educational opportunities for other students on campus. And we really appreciate this resource guide and everything that Falvey Memorial Library is doing for diversity on campus. So thank you so much.
We also had two organizations that wanted to be present but couldn't send a representative, so they sent flyers, which you can find over on our sign-up table. They are the Vietnamese Student Association and the Society of Women Engineers. We have a few minutes here scheduled for a Q&A, so I can answer any questions you have about the resource guide. We're a little bit over time, so I'll take a question or two if anybody has any. Yeah, Terry Nance will also take questions, or I'm sure anybody up here would be happy to answer anything. No? Well, yeah, we did a good job covering it. Yeah.
Contact us on the resource guide.
Yes. So thank you all for coming out. We really appreciate it. Something we wanted to do was to ask everybody to try to submit at least one resource to this page who came today. If it's not a resource, find a group that maybe you don't see represented yet and help us start the process of constructing new pages. Thank you, and thanks again to everyone who came out. I want to give a quick read of our co-sponsors. They were the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, Office of the President, Office of the Provost, Villanova School of Business, College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, the Augustine Cultural Seminar Program, College of Engineering and Villanova Innovation, College of Engineering and the Villanova Innovation, Creativity, and Entrepreneurship Institute. Thanks.